All right, welcome to the relationship show. This woman writes this post. It's an update on a previous post. I didn't read it, but she says, "Did I ask for too much?" Uh, so she says, "Today the guy contacted me again. All he sent was cutie." It's like, dude, you got to have some kind of outcome. If you come across like this, it's like, how is someone even going to respond to that? It's like, well, what do you mean? Like, thanks, or you just don't even respond, and it's like it has no outcome. It's comes across as chasing, comes across as like weird. So if you're doing this kind of stuff, just eliminate it. It's like you don't want to come across as chasing. It's insecure, it's approval seeking. It just makes the other person feel uncomfortable, especially in like a texting thing, because there's only words. There's no like tone of voice, there's no body language. But at the end of the day, it's like you have to have an outcome when you are initiating contact if you're a guy. And so to really, you'll probably have to initiate contact at the beginning, but eventually you want to initiate with a purpose, and that's how you really avoid coming across as chasing her. So you have a purpose each time you initiate. And then eventually, what you'll find is that she'll start to reach out to you more and more and more. And then naturally, she'll just do the majority of the initiating of conversation after 3 or 4 dates. And that's really the place where you want to be in, because now she's in this chasing role, which is more of a feminine quality, and you are strong in your masculine qualities. And when she reaches out, maybe you text her like maybe 3 times and you get off, and then you basically just set definite dates, be direct, decisive, get to the point. And when you're direct and decisive like that, that's more of a leadership masculine quality. And now what you've done is you have really structured your dating relationship in a way where you are the masculine quality, masculine essence, and she is in her feminine essence. And we have those two. That's really when everything aligns, like yin and yang. That's what the whole thing is. 3,000-year-old concept. It's like that's how attraction works, with those masculine and feminine qualities becoming into one. So she says, "I didn't reply for an hour and a half later, and then I got, okay, fine, no cuddle time then." It's like, fuck, dude. So this is like why, if you can learn this stuff, you will stand out so much about all the other guys. So it's like, because you're just got to eliminate this stuff. And dating, succeeding at dating and relationships and pickup has a lot to do with just eliminating these mistakes. And this is for sure a mistake. Just coming on like this is like it's way out of context, and really just really more of like an inappropriate thing to be saying. It's like you're trying to be playful, but you have no outcome. So what's your outcome by being playful? You don't have one. So you're indecisive right now. And when you're indecisive, you're more in a feminine quality. And on top of that, you're reaching out to her and chasing her and saying like, oh, pay attention to me, seeking her approval. That's another feminine quality as well. When that happens, she's in her feminine, you're trying to be in your feminine by acting this way, even though you don't mean to be in your feminine or mean to be weak or mean to be needy or weird. It's like you're still conveying that message. And when the two, basically like magnets, the two negatives hit each other, it's like, boom, they repel. And when they repel, she's gonna get away from you, dude. And also, you're acting needy because it's like you couldn't wait an hour and a half. And so it's like, how busy are you? How productive? How mission driven are you? If you can't wait an hour and a half, and it basically gets to you if you send something that has no, basically just sending her like cutie, like what the hell is it? They're gonna respond. But if you can learn this stuff, it's like you are in the 1 percentile. And so it's like, whatever, if she like leaves you for another person and you have these skills, so whatever the reason, it's like she's going to notice that these guys are making these types of mistakes. She's going to be totally uncomfortable with them. And she's like, okay, that guy is fucking awesome, and I need to get back with him right now. Or if you're making these mistakes prior, and then you're acting just like this other guy, and then all of a sudden you change and you start to try to reattract her through using like these principles and these skills. It's just going to be like a total wake up to her, and it's just like, that's what she wants. It's like she wants you to be strong, be masculine, and not act in these needy, weak ways. whenever I texted or called him, he often ignored me for days. And he's trying to game her out, and he's trying to play games and trying to be like, oh, I need to step back and be like, purposely ignore her. And if I ignore her, then she'll think about me more. And it's like, I actually do teach that concept with managing space. But with this situation, it's more of a manipulative tactic. Whereas this one, it's like, well, it might actually be, it might actually be a manipulative tactic. Maybe you would call it that, but it's a concept that's like, the difference between manipulation and leadership. Jocko Willink talks about this. He says, well, both of those things cause and basically influence another person to do something. But the difference is that when you are manipulating, you are basically influencing someone to benefit only you and only yourself. Whereas if you're in a leadership position, you are influencing people in order to benefit yourself, them, and also the entire mission. So it's like the reason why I do teach some of these things at the very start is to really identify what this person's beliefs are. So sometimes I will manage that space because attraction actually does. And that's why some of the manipulative tactics work. It's like understand the principles behind why these like psychological things work, and then use them to really benefit the entire relationship and the both of you. Because that space can actually cause attraction. So it's a matter of like closeness and then space. But also what that space does, it can bring out the best and worst in people. And so if you can basically give them space at the very beginning, just to kind of like read the situation, read the other person, read the other person's beliefs in order to know if you can succeed with this person. So what I'm meaning by this is like, if you have a good date, you wait like 3 days to contact them afterwards. And if they're like freaking out, if they're saying, why didn't you text me, or blowing up or whatever. So it's like that identifies that they have negative beliefs towards relationships, compared to someone who's like, well, we had a really good date, and he hasn't texted me for 3 days or hasn't gotten a hold of me for 3 days, but he really cared about me, and it was a really fun experience. And whether he reaches out or not, it's like it was cool, it was fun, it was a good time. And you want to just pick people to be in relationships with who have those positive associations to relationships and beliefs that relationships will work out. Because what you'll find is if you choose people who have beliefs on, relationships never work out, or relationships guys always cheat, or men are pigs, or these types of beliefs, long term, those will cause you so many difficulties, and oftentimes it will really just sabotage the relationship. And so it is important to pick. Picking is really half the battle on who you're with. You want to get a partner who has those positive beliefs. But bringing it back to this guy's just kind of intellectualizing this whole thing. So it's like, oh, he saw something on one time on Instagram where this guy was talking about, oh, if you just like basically teaching tricks or whatever, he might have saw one. And it's like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing based on how he's initiating these conversations. I'll continue on reading. He said, and now he's already getting passive aggressive after an hour and a half. If I would have texted this, he would have called me dramatic. My reply, okay, let's check this out. Hey, I don't want to be on standby just so you can have sex or cuddles whenever it suits you, especially not if I don't hear from you for days or longer afterwards, and if I have no idea what you actually want. If that's what you want, you've got to look for friends with benefits or Tinder hookups, but I'm not that person. Okay, well, I mean, so you're using the approach to stand up for yourself, and saying like, I won't tolerate this. This is kind of your approach on this. Honestly, I don't know the whole context. I don't know how long you've been with this person. I don't know the dating, if you're, the dating relationship context. But oftentimes it's like you kind of just like let that person go. If they're continuing on like pursuing, which you do see quite a bit, it's like if you don't text somebody back, it's like you just kind of end the relationship and they just start dumping you with text, or why don't you text me back or whatever. It's like, well, hey, I wasn't really interested. I appreciate it, appreciate the time, but I'm just moving on with my life, and take care. I don't think you really have to convey like your anger, kind of like what she did, and she's like, um, yeah, I just wouldn't take it that seriously. I just like, hey, I really wasn't feeling it, and I appreciate it, and appreciate you reaching out, but it's not gonna work for me, and take care. But let's see. Okay, for context, he knows how I'm feeling about him, and I've maybe oftentimes guys really project, or really anyone really projects their own emotions on the other person. And so it's like, oh, if they're really interested, they think the other person's really interested too. And so you'll see situations like guys saying like, oh, well, I know she loves me and stuff, but then she's like banging some other guy, or she's already got another boyfriend or whatever. It's like, she loves you that much, so it's like, it's just a fantasy, almost like in this fantasy mode, which basically skews your perception of reality. And then you start taking action, like doing weird things like texting her cutie just randomly. Um, and I basically spelled out my pretty minimal needs while showing understanding for him too. What I texted also wasn't new information. I was just being more direct this time. Yeah, so sometimes you do have to be direct if it's like not working, if you're trying to be like, hey, you've already made it clear that you're not really interested, and then they keep pursuing. It's like, hey, just back off. I'm not interested. His reply, not feeling like having a discussion, whatever. Okay, well, fine. You can respond that if you want, and then you just walk away, and it's just like, okay, end of conversation, end of relationship, never reach out again. And that was it. I hate conflict. I have a strong urge to give an explanation. Yeah, that's kind of what it seemed like, an explanation on, why you're feeling this way. It's like, oh, just like you're feeling that way because you feel that way. Not working for me. See you later. And make things right. But so far, I managed to not text him. Yeah, it can be a difficult thing to do. Walk away and mean it, and kind of fight that urge to reach out, especially if it's not like in a longer term relationship, or you've like had sex with the other person. And it's like you have that connection. Sometimes it can be hard. I'd say my weakness is that even after he treats me like this, I still see good in him. It probably has a lot of benefits as well, though. I still genuinely care about him, and my feelings don't suddenly disappear. How nice would that be? I don't really get angry or resentful. Okay, maybe. Which is why people I care about often succeed in talking me back into things that aren't good for me. Well, that just seems like you kind of have a need to really please people. And so if someone really wants you to do something, it's like your drive to please them kind of overrides your drive to please yourself and take care of yourself. And that can sometimes cause a lot of problems. And assertiveness is one of the big mistakes in a relationship, as far as what people need to work on, because it's like a lot of people are just like too nice. Sometimes it's like they try to please the other person no matter what, put their needs above theirs. And when that happens, eventually it's like you give, and then you have nothing left to give after a while, because you're basically empty and you haven't been taking care of yourself. So that is one thing, to be aware of, and something that you can maybe work on in your own life, and then just kind of doing something little, something small, not making it into this, oh, I have to have this huge mindset shift. Just like try one thing where it's like you say no to somebody, and then notice a lot. It's like, well, they don't really care. It's like you said no, but they're like, oh, okay, well, see you later. That's probably the response you're going to get, and it's going to surprise you. That all this time you've been thinking that if you say no, then they're not going to like you or not going to be friends with you. But the reality is, it's not the case. It's like, well, it's not that big of a deal. And once you realize that, then you can say no more and more and more, and really stick up for the things that you really want in your own life and take care of yourself. She says, but tonight I chose me. It's just a small victory, and I'm not there yet, but it's a start. Thanks again for the support. So I guess what she's meaning by that is that she kind of stood up for him just being like kind of weird and over pursuing and making her feel uncomfortable. She says this. She basically communicated that I don't like you doing that, and it's making me feel uncomfortable. Yeah, it's going. That's great if you can maintain that. So it's like if you can actually stay there. So if you go back to what you were saying, so it's like if you say, "Oh, it makes me feel uncomfortable," then you just allow him to do that more and more and more, and then just still be with him, or not have any kind of consequence, or not really say what you mean. Then it might actually even hurt your confidence in that area. So just be aware of that. It's like if you're going to state and not tolerate things, it's like, well, you better be able to not tolerate them for the long term, and not just say things like, I'm not going to put up with this, and then the next day or the next week or the next 2 weeks, you're putting up with it again.